Hi, I'm Deb from Online Camera Ed. Still working on our processing raw images. This is part 3. We're going to look at how you can adjust your contrast much more precisely than just using the slider. So first of all, we're going to open an image, so we'll use our bridge. Click on the image that we want to open. Double click it and it will open in the raw processor for you. Now you can see it while the image is good and nice and clear, it is lacking a little bit in contrast. Now we could just move our slider up and down, which as you can see is improving the image, and notice too when we're working on contrast, it is adjusting the highlights, midtones and shadows all at once. But this is a bit of hit and miss, so I'm going to show you a slightly more precise way of doing it. So I'll just double click that to get it back to how it was when we started. Okay, now we're going to use this icon up here, which is our tonal curve icon. So we'll click on that, and you will notice that we have two options here. In other words, there's two different ways of doing the same thing. We have a parametric tab, and if we click on the parametric tab, you will notice that we have 4 sliders here, and that does actually split up highlights, lights, dark, shadows. Now you can see why if you use the contrast node on your main screen back here, the one that we were fiddling with before, it is changing highlights, midtones and shadows all at once. If we use our tonal curve, we are splitting that and we can adjust the highlights, contrast of the various individual bits one at a time. So what we can do now is play with the sliders, and we will see that the highlights, we're not really seeing any change. And notice as we're doing it that our little line is changing direction. So we'll just fiddle around with it a little bit here. Now this is a matter of play with it and see if you like what it's doing, don't like what it's doing. And you can see it is improving it, making it a little bit better. If you compare that to the original image, it is looking a little bit more impressive, and you can actually see a little bit better detail in it. It is a little bit hard sometimes to get it exactly right. That's getting a little bit better there. You'll notice there's significant changes in our histogram. Now this is our same clipping tool, so we can click on that to see what areas we're possibly losing detail and decide whether or not that's important. Now we're only losing some detail in the sky there, so that's not a biggie. And we're only losing a tiny bit of the blue that you can see in the right hand side of the image, so that's nothing to worry about either. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. If we were to click on the point tool, you will notice that we have, before we do that, we'll just put this back to where we started. Okay, a bit dull and lifeless again. We can go to our point tool. Now what that does is you can actually adjust the curve yourself simply by picking up the nodes and moving it. So we can pick it up and move it in whatever directions. You can move them up and down the line, and all little things start to change. And we can pull this one up here. We're starting to give it a little bit more punch now. We can pull that one up there and get it looking a little bit better. That's getting it a bit too dark. And play with it that way. Let's see. That's looking better. Might pull this one down here a bit. And you can see that's looking way better than our original image was. Okay. If you want to add in a node, click on your line, double click, and you've got an extra one. And you can do whatever you want with it. You can totally make a mess of it. Okay. And that's not looking too bad there. Okay. So if you compare that to our original image, I think you'll find that it is significantly improved from what it was before we started. There's quite often a very fine line between what's good and what's not, so experience is your best teacher. Okay, it's as simple as that. Then when we're finished, we can open our image, and that is so much better than what we started with. Okay, it's that simple. That is how to adjust your contrast using the tonal curve. Okay, have fun.